All right, let's jump right into it. Thank you, everybody, for attending episode 26 in Let's Talk Recruiting. We're getting through almost to the end of Q2. Things have been going great. Oh, I got a little echo there. I want to thank our panelists for participating again today in our topic, which is tips and tricks for working remotely, which I think everybody's in this situation, whether by choice or whether they want it or not. We're all kind of getting our time in from working from home, kind of trial by fire, learn by fire. So with us today, we have Andy Lloyd out of Denver, Elizabeth Allen out of Los Angeles, where I'm also out of, and Amanda Albrecht. Did I say that last name right, Amanda? All right, thanks. I'm getting better at pronouncing last names, but I'm still not perfect. So again, our topic, tips and tricks for working remotely. We're going to kind of do a round robin, have an open discussion. If you're an attendee and if you want to add any questions or comments to the chat area, please do so. We'll get to those as we go. So with that said, Andy, I am going to jump it over to you to start off with your key items.
Okay. Well, Sean, thank you so much for letting me participate. Just a couple words about me. I work for a privately held software company. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is that my company, 75% of all the roles are remote. So for the last 4 years, not only have I worked remote, but I've recruited primarily software engineers that live throughout the US, Canada, United Kingdom, Colombia, and then I've got a few other roles that I recruit for in Singapore and Australia. So as I've thought about remote the last few years, as not necessarily that you need particular or specific skills or attributes to be successful. I think what I've come to think about it more as a work style. So is remote the right work style for you, or is co-located the right work style for you? And as Sean indicated earlier, everybody, well, almost, has had to become remote in the last few months. So what I have thought about when I talk to candidates, and I think this is applicable to all of us, is to stop and think, is this the right work style for you? And maybe some questions to think about, and not an exhaustive list by any means, but some things to think about. One, do you like to have a separation between work and home? Some people really do like that. I know commute sounds crazy for most people, but actually some people like that. So that would be one thing to think about. The second, depending on your team, are they co-located or are they remote? And if it's primarily a co-located team that you're part of, do you like to be there in that room? Do you feed off the physical energy or presence of others? Do you like that close interaction of literally I can turn to the other side of the aisle and I see my coworker there? Do I like to, or maybe appreciate what I call the rituals of the co-located world? So that might be, oh, I can have coffee with her, or we can go to lunch together as a team. Or maybe you want to have an adult beverage at the end of the day, if that's your choice, with a couple of people. And those things are very specific to the office. They're not a remote culture. And then I think some other things to think about as well. For you, where do you feel most productive or most comfortable? So I know those are kind of a quick group of questions. It's not to say that we can't work remotely. We've proven that. I think the question I would hope to ask to the audience today, think about this, is this the best work style for you? And if so, great, jump in, embrace it. It's kind of messy, but you'll figure it out. But if you've done this now for a few months and it's very uncomfortable, it might be the signal this may not be the ideal work style for you.
Andy, when you're talking about co-located teams, So I've been, I don't know if this defines a co-located team, but the team basically, you have a team of 8 and we had it where you could pick one day work from home.
Right.
Everybody kind of got to pick the day, except Tuesdays. So that was like team meeting Tuesday. When we talk about co-located teams, let's say you're leading this team, so you're trying to set it up for best for success. Is it best to have like one day where everybody's in no matter what, and then you kind of pick around that? Or is it acceptable to not be that person in the room on a call? Because if I hate being that person who's on the telephone and everybody else is in the room, you're kind of left out for the most part. It's been my experience.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on defining a co-located team?
Yeah. When I use the term, and thanks for asking that, I think of individuals that are primarily working in the office. Now, yes, there may be some occasional days that they work from home, but the norm is everyone is in the office on a normal situation.
Amanda, Elizabeth, anything to add to that on the co-located?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, that you really have to make sure that it's the right fit for you. I personally love working from home because I'm much more productive without people stopping by my desk and interrupting me. I like to get my work done and have my personal time. So if I can just really jump in and focus and not be interrupted, it allows me to do that. And plus, you living in LA, I'm sure you understand the commute time just really takes away from your personal time.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think thinking about kind of the remote work being a work style, and if it's something that you're in right now, thinking about how you can adapt your routine, and I know we're going to talk a bit about that later, to kind of more reflect the work style in the office that you like more. Because if there are things that aren't working for you, there are some things you can do to try to make it more similar to when you're in the office. I know I personally like splitting my time between the office and working at home. There's some projects where if I'm doing a lot of admin work or like reports and stuff like that, I like being around other people while I do that. But when I'm on the phone, I need to be more isolated since I'm the only recruiter at my company. So I need to be in private when I talk about pay rates and things like that with my candidates. So that's easier just to do at home than in the office a lot of the time.
Yeah, when you talk about figuring out whether it's right for you, I started working from home in 2006, and it took me about 2 days to figure out, yeah, I like this. This is for me.
Same here.
Yeah. So, and I have had people like, I can't do it. I don't get anything done. I have to be in the office. And like, yeah, it's not me. But it's sort of interesting, Andy, to your point, is it a right site profile for yourself, I guess. Let's see, Elizabeth, let's jump over to your items that you had.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm Elizabeth Allen. I've been recruiting for, over 20 years now in a variety of industries. The last 8, I've been working in hospital and healthcare organizations, with the last 5 working remote from home. Like I mentioned, I really like it for a number of reasons. I could probably give you a bunch of tips, but I did narrow it down. So my first tip is to actually, even if you're working from home, treat the job as if you were at the office. Meaning, I get up, get showered, I get ready for my day, and I'm in my desk by the time that I want to work, just like as if I was supposed to report to an office by 8 or 8:30, whatever the time is. I get in my seat and start my day. I think it just kind of sets you in the right frame of mind. That doesn't mean you have to get dressed up in professional attire. Maybe you do if you have virtual videos or meetings, but otherwise, I just dress comfortably. I wouldn't recommend pajamas because a lot of people say, oh yeah, you can just work in your pajamas, but I don't think, for me anyway, it doesn't set the right frame of mind. It's a little too relaxed. And also, I like to be ready for my day after work. If I have to stop and take a shower at 5 o'clock to go out, I don't think I would bother. Right now, there's not a lot of going out, but even just go walk the dog, or you want to run to the store, it's nice to already be ready to go. And also, I think it's important to let your friends and family know that this is a real job. Just because you're working from home, they don't need to constantly stop by the house and pop in just to chat whenever they want, or call you all the time, ask you to run errands. So it's just important. It is a real job, and you have to treat it that way.
Elizabeth, I'm going to push back on you a little bit around the wardrobe. So I've always been like an early bird in my life. So I always like to get in before other people and have a couple hours of my time.
Uh-huh.
That's sort of how I got put into me is, hey, get in, do your work before you get disturbed. So my routine is always, hey, I get up early, a couple hours, sometimes 3, before regular people get into, well, before the clock starts, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, when I say early bird, I mean early. And I'd show up in my work, in my pajamas, so to speak. I'd get in my couple hours of my time, undisturbed work, and then right around when that 8 o'clock was hitting, that's when I go, to your point, then I get my shower in, put on a shirt, still wear the shorts underneath, right? So, but I do put the collared shirt on, and then come back into my routine. So to me, and this is sort of leading to another question around time management. We've all heard the whole phrase work-life balance. But to me, it's always like when you work from home, you really get to apply some personal thought into that. I've never been a fan of that phrase because I always thought it meant you separate work and life. Or I always say, no, I'm going to blend it together. And having that time, which means that from working from home, hey, I can get up and work early, or I can work late because to your point about the drive, I'm not driving or anything like that. I can take a break and do the laundry at 10 a.m. if I don't have a meeting. Maybe I'm putting in more time from 6 to 7. That blending to me. Sort of goes for Elizabeth and the rest of the panel. Working from home, how does that approach come into your work-life balance, so to speak? Any thoughts around that?
Well, I love how you. Oh, I'm sorry, Amanda. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was like, one of my tips was just because you're working from home doesn't mean you're always working. And I know that was something that I kind of fell into when I first started working from home, was I would like stay logged in too late and not have that good balance. But it is a lot about kind of being flexible and adjusting your schedule and having that clear communication with your coworkers about like when you're logging off. Like if I'm working on something and it's after hours, I won't log into our chat so they don't know I'm logged in. So I can just focus on what I'm working on. Because I do work with people in different time zones. So like my manager's on the West Coast, and then I have another HR person I work with on the East Coast. So we're all a little bit off from each other with our scheduling. But I think it's just important to be flexible and make sure that you are having at least some separation. I know I have a separate work phone and a separate home phone, like a personal cell phone, and a separate laptop for work and a separate laptop for home. And so I can have the ultimate do not disturb on the weekends. If I definitely want to shut everything out, I just close everything and put it at my desk and leave it for Monday.
Andy, you want to say something?
Yeah, Sean, I love how you used the term work-life blending. And that was a phrase I heard from a great Agile coach several years ago. And that's kind of my approach of where I may, depending on how busy I am, I may dive in and go heads down for 3 or 4 hours. And then I'll block time. We use Slack in my company, so I'll put a little, hey, here's what I'm doing, which could be walking the dogs, whatever I'm doing. But everyone knows I'm going to be gone for this period of time, then come back in. So that's a little bit of a work style preference, but yeah, I would certainly agree, regardless of whether you like to work in dedicated time blocks or you like to work in what would refer to as chunks. It is important to figure out some kind of way to stop working, because as Amanda's point, you can go down the proverbial rabbit hole and you look up and it's pitch black outside and you're like, wow, what happened? So I think it's a very good point to bring out.
I recommend getting a dog because my dog says it's 5 o'clock. You need to take me for another walk. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that you had to only work like strictly 8 to 5. I sometimes start earlier and sometimes work, start later and end later, depending on what interviews and things that I have going on. So I think, it's just overall just having that routine to make you think, this is a real job. I have a lot of people, and maybe you do too, where they say, oh my gosh, you just work from home, you just like kick back and, read books and, not really treating it like it's a real job.
I've had it where when my kids were small, sometimes they'd come out and hang out underneath my desk during my workday. Compared to being a teenager's now, where about 20 minutes ago I had to tell my teenage son, "Hey, get out of here! I'm about to go to a webinar," because he had a question for me. So to your kind of balancing when you have the family at home, which kind of leads me into, hey, everybody should have Bluetooth headphones if you have family at home, so they know that's work time. Stole that from a developer that didn't want to be asked questions when he had his headphones on. So I kind of stole his thing. The time thing. I've been in-house for about 4 years now. Before that, I did consulting, and I'd have, when I was maxed out, I'd have 3 clients at one time. And what I did was to kind of get a grasp of my time is I used a salon scheduling calendar, like a notebook, where you had like multiple columns, if you've ever seen one of those. And that's how I would log my time, so I knew what I was doing and what I had to be doing at a certain time, dealing with, like, I deal with multiple clients, recruiters deal with multiple hiring managers or departments. That was a way that I could organize and assign my time. I know people can do that in Outlook and Gmail calendar, but for me, I'm more of a visual person. So if it's out of sight, out of mind for me. So I would use that salon calendar to kind of help me manage my time and look back on where I spent my day. So Andy, to your point about the 8 o'clock hour or the dark, with summer schedule, now it's like, hey, it's 7:30 and the sun's still up. Where did that day go? So it's almost like the flip of it.
I know it's nighttime when you're trying to eat dinner, or it's daytime, I mean.
Before I jump off of Elizabeth's points, Amanda, I don't know if you were going to talk on like home setup, because Elizabeth, I earlier you talked about spotlighting that. Or Amanda, if you want to jump into it, we can keep going that conversation.
One of my topics was creating a workspace and routine that works for you. I know a lot of people do have home offices. I don't. I live in a studio apartment, and I have almost the entire time I've been working from home. So in some cases, my desk was 2 feet from my bed. So just like, I think it's important to have a dedicated space, even if that is just having your desk face a wall away from any other distractions in your house, and possibly something that you can put away at the end of the day if you have limited space. So having like maybe a folding table that you set up with a chair and your laptop or something when you're working from home. And then when you're done, you can kind of close that out and have that away from your home space. So it's not constantly there for you to worry about, or you're not constantly hearing the pings of emails in the middle of the night that you always get and wanting to go and check on them. So it's kind of more like building that space that you can work with, and like making sure you have a good desk chair, I think is really important when you're working from home full time. I'm realizing that right now, and I had to order a new one.
So I got to ask that. So to me, a good desk chair is like the holy grail. I've been searching for one. I continue my search. I've switched to like gamer chairs, because I figured, they sit my games for 15 hours. It's probably a good office chair. Does anybody know a fantastic, and Andy, you look like you got a nice chair behind you. What is the best, and is there a fantastic desk chair?
I've gone through several last year. I found this, I think it was like in the Wall Street Journal, called X Chair. And their pricing starts from probably about $550 as the base, and it goes up to about $1,100. So I ended up choosing the less expensive model, and I've greatly enjoyed it because it's got some great lumbar support. And you're absolutely right, because that's one thing. If you're transitioning from the co-located, meaning the office space, somebody else has bought hopefully that nice Herman Miller or something chair for you, and now you're sitting at your table chair, and you realize, oh yeah, this is not. So yeah, so I think that is, if you're going to make an investment, and again, I have no family members connected with X chair. That yeah, ghosts, that would be well worth spending some money on.
I totally agree. In fact, that was one of my tips, was to invest in your workspace. And my greatest, or I would say my greatest, but one of my most favorite investments recently was a sit stand riser for the top of my desk, so that I don't have to sit in the chair all day. And what a difference, when you can stretch your legs, and I even sometimes kind of walk in place as I work, it really makes a difference.
You got that in your home office, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And you don't have to spend, huge amounts of money. There's different price ranges. I didn't go super cheap on the riser because I wanted it to work well and be easy and not pinch my fingers and that kind of thing. So I spent a little money, but it's been well worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of thinking about the sit stand stations, I really like those, and we had them when I go to work, we have them in the office, but at home, I don't have that set up. So what I did was I just used a milk crate, because it was the perfect height on top of my desk to put my laptop to stand up.
Oh.
So you can even do like improvised things if you're temporarily working from home, or even just, I think, if you're like moving from your desk maybe to working at the kitchen counter for a few hours or something like that, standing there and working. Mm-hmm.
When you're not using it, Amanda, does your cat sit in it? I saw your cat make an appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love boxes. So speaking of like the home investment, are you using a webcam, or are you using your laptop's camera?
My laptop.
Yeah, my laptop.
Yeah, actually the one that's built into my iMac.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I use a webcam. You can get it for about $100. I think as the world starts to move towards the Zoom revolution or what have you, it seems to be they're taking the biggest market share. So I'm just going to keep referring to home working as Zooming. That's one thing I would recommend is a webcam. You can just angle it different ways and have sort of control over it, especially, and again, I think this is going to be a long-term thing. So good to me, invest in a webcam. I always buy mine from Logitech. Andy, like you, I don't know anybody who works for any investment in it, but it makes good cameras, pretty decent price, and they last for a long time. Oh, sticking with the home investment, as I'm doing these webinars, I will say each of your setups seems to be, hey, this is really good. They look all professional. I'm glad this is the work from home one, because sometimes people are like working in their kitchen and it's dark or what have you. So even just around lighting, I bought like a $10 clip-on lamp from Walmart. I clipped that onto my monitor and put a little filter paper that photographers use, like a little 5x5 square, to kind of diffuse the light. That's another thing that I'd recommend is the webcam and the lighting, a little bit of lighting, like a little cheap desk lamp. You don't need any hi-fi special lighting, but a little goes.
We don't want high def on our face.
It's coming. It's coming.
And I have to admit, this isn't where I sit to work. This is like my video call setup, because like I have a little sunroom, so I'm always too backlit if I'm at my actual desk. It's really nice to sit and work at, because I do get a lot of natural light, and I'm by the window so I can see the outside. But for my company, we don't use video calls, but when I do have video calls that I'm on, I always like move my setup into my living room area, because it does have better lighting and a better background.
Do you do interviews with candidates on your webcam?
No, we do them all over the phone. So I just do the first preliminary phone screen, and then we're pretty quick to get people on site, because it is for retail. So they want to get them in store and like show them what it's like in store, and meet with them face to face when they can.
Andy, what about you? Are you doing candidate interviews via webcam?
Yes. Not only do I do, but our entire interview process is webcam. So typically and each interviewer has a little bit of wiggle room, but they're either on Zoom or a Google Hangout with their candidate.
Elizabeth, how about you and your team that you work with?
I typically phone screen. I don't do video screening, but then because of COVID, they've mandated that the candidates for the first interview, they can't just go into our dialysis centers. So the managers do WebEx interviews, and I usually host those and get them going because a lot of the managers, they can't seem to figure it out how to how to get it going. And then I usually kind of bow out after I make sure everybody's on and things are going smoothly.
I support a software company out of Austin, and they've we started tracking it with their software engineers, and they've cut their hiring time by 2 weeks because they're doing it all on Zoom and Zoom. It's a combination of Zoom and Slack, but all video based. So now the VP of recruiting there is hoping how he can continue this once everything starts back up again, or does he have to go back to the old school way of telephoning and meeting people face to face? So sort of interesting. I also have a buddy. He was I think I can talk about it now. He's a director of recruiting for Uber. He's now at Match.com, and he started and ended the whole process via Zoom video. So it's like I haven't met anybody face to face, all Zoom from start to finish. Yeah, that's interesting. So
Wow.
interesting, because to me the whole Zoom thing kind of brings us to the working from home. I just saw a podcast, a Joe Rogan podcast. He's been making the news these days, and he just had a guy's name's Jocko, former Navy SEAL. He's now into leading business leaders. He was quoting a report that just came out during this COVID crisis, how, everybody talks about, hey, when you meet somebody face to face in the same room, a lot of that connection happens there versus over the phone, which I totally agree with. How just having that video face to face and looking at people is not completely there, but it's closer to being at that 100% versus it's not as impactful as it was before. So with this whole Zoom, everybody knows this video conferencing, and we've proven it can be done, whether you're a big fan of it or not. It's proven that it can be done. I just really think the way that our home office goes with these enabling tools and these enabling experiences, where it's going to take us, really working from home and being recruiters. Amanda, I get it to your point. Hey, it's retail, it's quick, face to face. We got to keep it moving. And Andy, to your point, well, hey, most of your guys that you recruit don't even go on site. It's just going to be really interesting the way everything goes. And any thoughts on like the big picture of working from home coming out of the COVID crisis, where we think it's going to go?
I think more companies may offer remote as an option for some of their employees when they realize it can save a lot of money on office space. And I know our company's talking about, certain departments that could just continue working from home, like HR, or maybe, like you said, Andy, was it you that said to co-mingle with the office? Or yeah. So they might do something like that.
If WeWork survives through all of this, that'll be another interesting tangent. When I talked about, hey, having team meetups. Well, are we meeting up at the office because there's not enough conference rooms available? Or are we meeting at a WeWork type conference room? Or Amanda, to your point about getting time off, my office away from office used to be Panera Bread, because they had the free Wi-Fi and you could hang out in free coffee refills. I went to Panera instead of Starbucks because Panera had free coffee refills. Getting out and meeting and still having that IT support to being able to be online and things like that. Interesting tangents. Let's see. We're coming up to the half-hour time. Any other sort of kind of around the tactics of it? Any final thoughts around, not necessarily a philosophy and the big picture of it, but any sort of tips for your home office setup? I'll give a final tip around equipment. I recommend everybody have a little two-drawer filing cabinet for your work stuff. If you are going to and from work or what have you, that little dedicated space if you need to keep things at home. I always have, wherever I've gone, I've had my two-drawer file cabinet, and it just goes wherever I go. Not to the office, but when I move. Any final thoughts or comments around kind of some interesting little tactics that we've learned from working from home? And Andy, let me start with you if you have any final comments.
Yeah, I think I would go also in as far as not only investing in a chair, invest in a quality headset, because I'm still a big believer in the telephone. Video is great, but telephone can do a lot for us. So my tip is, whatever your brand, invest in a quality headset that also gives you a wireless headset that gives you the opportunity to stand up and get away from your desk.
No, Andy, I got to ask, that's another holy grail search for me. What is your favorite headset?
I go with Plantronics. I've been a big fan for a number of years.
Okay. On that quick note, what I've sort of switched to is let me show you. I use just my regular cordless headphone, but I do the wire plug-in. So I put this on my belt, put my headphones on. I've gotten the best results with that because Plantronics always people would say, "Are you going through a tunnel?" I can't have that. So that's another holy grail search to best Plantronics. I do have like 3 of them, so I can't say that I haven't tried many of them, but I still continue that search. All right, excellent point. Amanda, let's go to you if you have any final topics, final hints.
Yeah, I definitely second the wireless headset. I just got these headphones when I started working from home full time again, with the offices being closed down, and that's been really great. Previously, I was just using like earbuds with an inline microphone, but having the wireless headset, I think, is really great. I was kind of pushed to that direction because my work phone doesn't have a headphone jack anymore, but I really enjoyed the versatility and being able to switch from phones or to my computer if I'm doing a webinar or something to that audio without having to plug and unplug things into each other. That's been really great.
Elizabeth?
Well, I actually don't use headset. I use my cell phone with the speaker, and it works really well. What I've found really handy though is I actually got a Google Voice account, so I can have a separate phone line through Google Voice, and I either talk through my computer or through my cell phone. But that way, not everybody has my personal cell phone number. So if I know that the call's coming from Google Voice, or I'm getting texts and it's after hours and I don't want to respond, I can just ignore it because I know it's not a personal call.
And, Amanda said earlier she uses 2 phones. Are you then, Elizabeth, a 1 phone person?
Yeah, it's 1 phone, but then if I want to call out, I just go into the Google Voice app, and you can pick a phone number. I recruit a lot for the San Francisco area, so I chose the San Francisco area code. People are more apt to pick it up, and you can do great text recruiting from Google Voice because you can type a text from your computer and it goes to the person's. I have gotten so many more people responding through a text versus a phone call. Like, can I set up a phone screen with you? It's amazing. I think it's like the new thing.
Andy, 2 phones or 1? Where do you go with?
Actually, I go 3. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna. That's we can go deep on that one. I'm not gonna ask what you have 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amanda.
I've used Google Voice before because with my old company, we had working from home. We all just had web over IP on our computers, and it wasn't very reliable when we first got it. So using Google Voice was a lot easier with your cell phone. And then again, people don't have your personal number, which is really great. And you can see that it's a work call right away, and sending the text through Google is a lot easier.
Yeah, maybe I won't sort of date anybody, but if you remember the times before cell phones came around, there weren't so many phone numbers, you could pick the last, or at least where I was, you could pick the last 4 digits of your phone number, and I'd always choose 0911. And I had that for like 7 years. It'd be easy to remember my phone number. I could choose a prefix, but I could choose my last 4, so I always went with that. There is a question from Wendy Vandal about, does anyone have data on average savings for working remotely? I do not, but I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of studies coming out of this crisis that we're in that sort of dictate that. So yeah, sorry for that. I don't have that, but I think there's a lot of savings both financially and mentally, in my opinion. Elizabeth, to your point, if I don't have to be in that traffic in LA, I am thanking everyone for that. All right. I want to thank everybody. Again, I think this is something close to everybody, and I think it's going to be sticking around long term. That's just my gut. Okay. Bez says there's federal data. This is an act of 2010 that they have been sharing. All right. Not sure what that means totally. But again, thanks you for everybody for attending and talking shop around this area. Much appreciated. And with that said, enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.